Welcome. My name is Colleen Tauke and I'm the sewing specialist here at Fons and Porter. In this Quilting Quickly tutorial, I'm going to show you how to make the bed runner called Curves Ahead. If you'd like to purchase this pattern, please visit our website. Now this project has curves in it, but there are no curved seams. So I'm going to show you a technique that has a folded fabric square inserted, and then we can create curves. On the Sewing Center here, I have a block that we're going to be creating in this project, and I will show you here where these folded pieces are inserted. There's one here, and there's one here. They're different sizes, so it means that the square that we're going to insert is going to be a different size. But that fold along the diagonal then allows for a bias edge to stretch and for us to peel it back. Very similar to what you would see in a traditional cathedral window project. So in the past, if you've seen cathedral window or done any of those, it'll seem very familiar because that curve is created in the same manner in both these places. A little curve here and a larger one in the center. And those are stitched in place once the entire runner is created. So let's get into how to create the blocks for this. We're using 5-inch pre-cut squares, and this is a batik collection of all kinds of different brights, and then we're using this kind of butter colored background fabric. So from those 5.5-inch or 5-inch pre-cut squares, the pattern has a diagram so you'll know how to cut the pieces. You're going to be cutting A, B, and C off of this. So a rectangle that's 4.5, a 2-inch square, and a 1.5-inch, I believe, or no, 2.5. And a 2-inch square. Get it right. So then the reasoning behind this is there's 3 different sizes. They all get used, 1, 2, 3, within these blocks. And that way you get to use a really great collection of fabrics that someone else has already put together. So sometimes when we see those pre-cuts, we go, oh, but what would I make from it? Because you've got all these great colors and a great collection, here's a place to use those. So cut out your pieces that are required in the directions. And then we're going to be cutting also, of course, your background pieces, so follow the instructions for those. Now, I've got pieces here, and I'm going to be laying these out so that you can kind of see how we're going to be addressing these pieces that go into it. So I've got a rectangle here, so the rectangle floats all the way under the triangle that we're going to create. We're taking a background fabric like this, we're folding it in half, taking it to the iron so that we get a good, nice, crisp fold. You can finger press it, but you really want this to be nice and flat so that it inserts between layers later and won't slide around and then get a nice, because you're going to be basting. You can see here I have put in basting lines, and you want those to have all the square to be perfectly aligned. Then I'm going to lay out these pieces also, and here's where the smaller square comes into play. Again, we're going to fold that. You can finger fold it just to get to the outside edge, and then take it to the iron again so you get a nice crisp fold. And if you work down through a bunch of these at once, you could iron all of them at once, but if you're planning a little at a time, you can go back and forth, keep your iron handy and hot. And we're going to be going in to baste those in place. Now, when you baste, you want to be just a little bit short of the 1/4-inch seam because you don't want your stitching to show in your finished project. Because we're not going to take these stitching lines out, we're going to leave them in because they're going to be in the seam allowance. You can set the stitch length for a little bit longer stitch if you'd like, or you can just leave it at your normal stitch length for your piecing. Either will work. If you come from the garment construction background, basting is usually a longer stitch length, but because these are short little seams, normal stitch length will work fine. And see there, I've basted those in place because I don't want them to shift, as then I will join together pieces here. I've basted this, and you can't see the red stitching. I'll flip it over, you can see I did stitch there. Then you're going to join together pieces, these 2 squares then by right sides together. And this is where it comes in handy that those are basted, because we want to stitch along here, taking those to the sewing machine. If you're going to be going through 4 layers like a fabric like that, you may get a shift. And this way you know that that triangle is staying in place. So then you 1/4 inch seam here and open it out and then join the rows together. Again, think about stitching this in place here with this triangle kind of floating. So there's times where we want everything to stay in place. That basting is a great step to take. And then you'll go through and create the required number of blocks like this. And this is what an actual block looks like. It's 4 of the units or segments put together and has sashing between and a cornerstone to join. Now there are also blocks in this quilt that are made up of more background pieces like this. So they have a long piece of just background fabric, a square of background, a triangle of the background fabric, and a batik. And those you can find along the outer edge. You see kind of pie-shaped pieces around the outer edge. Those are all created that way. Now, once you've created 5 of these that go down the center of the quilt, and you've created your outside pieces, you're going to be wanting to look at that outer edge, because you see that it's not square. It has a shaping to the outer edge of it. And how do you create that? If you like it square, you're the creator, you can leave it squared off if you'd like. If you want to create this curve, it's created with a template you find in your pattern. And it looks something like this. Now I've transferred this to template plastic so that I could show you then how you can lay this onto your quilt project and transfer that curve to the outer edge for cutting. Now this is done after the quilt top. One thing I forgot to do. We created this, but I didn't tell you how to stitch these. I'm sorry. Well, we'll jump back here. These are created by pulling back once you've got the entire quilt top completed. You're going to bring these back. You can put a pin in if you like. Just depends on if you're used to using pins or if you think you can just kind of fly by the seat of your pants and hold on to it. You're going to put that under the sewing machine and you're going to drop the needle in and you're going to stitch real close to the edge all around. And I've done one here so that you can see in bright red. You would not be using bright red. You would probably use a cream color thread here and then maybe a dark matching thread on this one. But you can see I just dropped my needle in, did a couple of back tack stitches, then stitched and again locked the end there. So those are all curves all created in your quilt top before you go to the quilting step. Now this is kind of an overlay. This is part of the quilt top. This piece is similar to this. So as an overlay, as we get to the outside edge of the quilt top, I wanted to show you how to do that template. We're back to that. So the template I traced from the pattern, took it to a template plastic so that I could then transfer that shape along the outside edge. So it's created so that you can drop it in to, there's a seam line here and here of the background. You can drop it right in. There's a diagram in your pattern. You can come in then, and I'm using just a water-soluble marking pen here. You could use a chalk liner, whatever your most comfortable favorite tool is. And then you can trim away this piece. And then you could trim from end to end. You can align that and shorten it just a bit. But that is how you would get that curve along that outer edge. Now do remember, when you go to layering and quilting, you've created bias edge here, so be very careful with it. If you'd like to see more of our Quilting Quickly tutorials, please visit our website. Thanks for joining me today.